So let's talk about Kurt Wallman. He was a very good friend of mine.
Well, again,
Not that the others weren't.
no. But Kurt, uh, again, here's this connection with the Mary Balke Circle, the mothers that were in that group,
Mm-hmm.
and this group of children particularly. And so Betty Wallman was in this Mary Balke group along with Leila Miller, and I was in the group, and Barbara Vossler was in that group, and several others.
My mother was in the group.
These are the mothers. This was our church circle, the Women's Society, and we had several circles. And so Betty Wallman was in this group, and Kurt was the youngest of that family. And, of course, when we had the spelling test on simple machines like incline plane and screw.
It was a spelling test, so you combined spelling and physics.
Oh, everything. And so we had this lesson, and of course...
The incline plane, the screw is an incline plane.
Yes, but...
around
Yeah.
an axis.
But of course, we had a trial test, like on Wednesday, and I pronounced the words. And of course, as I pronounced the word screw, and had to come up with a sentence to use it in. And
Oh God, go ahead.
Okay. And as I looked around the room, Kurt Wallman, and probably Larry Edgar, and I don't know, certainly Bob.
Oh yeah, he was in there. He was in that crew.
Yeah. And
Brian Wickman.
yeah, and when I said the word screw, those eyes were all twinkling. And so when I said the word and I looked around the room and they were all twinkling, I grinned.
Oh, did you catch it too?
Oh, God, you'd have to be hit over the head. I mean, to not catch it. And you know, that group was about 10 levels ahead of everybody else, because I think I used to do that same lesson with other people, and I never had the reaction to that spelling lesson that group. They were just really tuned in. And so I just I had...
So Kurt.
Yes, well, Kurt was there. Well, Kurt was always...
You know, my parents almost named me Kurt. But anyway, I digress.
Well, anyway, I can remember we had a reading class and we were discussing a story. And this was typically Kurt. Sometimes we would read out loud during the class period because I wanted to hear them read, see how fluent they were.
Pronunciation, enunciation,
yes.
all that.
I wanted to listen to them. But if we were discussing a story and I asked a question, then all of a sudden his arm went up. Kurt, what is it? And he'd be asking me. I think what he did was he read like a couple of sentences ahead, and then he'd go back, and then he'd raise his hand, and what about so-and-so? And I said, well, Kurt, that's in the next sentence. And so then and it was so funny because it was always, his hand was up like this because he came up with a question.
Almost purposely reading ahead so he could sound like he was clairvoyant or...
Well, no, well, I think this is something about his personality is that he wanted to know why something, but he didn't, and he'd stop right there because he didn't know why, and and then it was in the next segment, or the next four words or whatever. And it was so funny. I just about hooted. Then the other time, and I don't know if this was when he was in the 6th grade or maybe in junior high, and we were going to have discussion groups in the fellowship hall of the Presbyterian Church. And he was in a discussion group. Now, he was young. And the adults in the group made him the discussion leader to report back to the rest of the group. And so I can remember Kurt saying something about, well, you could sit down and talk things out and discuss them. And over here is Betty Wallman, and she's rolling her eyes up, because here's Kurt, saying these very profound, thoughtful things, and she's saying to herself, where in the world is that coming from, because he was, the play, the rest of the people probably didn't know what was going on, but I was listening to him, and I was seeing his mother over here, and just the interaction between what was going on. And I can remember Betty Wallman, again, was another person that I used to visit with after church quite often. And I remember her saying to me one time, she hadn't been at church circle for a while, and she said, well, Bonnie, I just need to be at home when kids are leaving and when they're coming home, so that there is someone, so that, where are you going, or where have you been, and at the time, I remember that piece of advice about child raising. You need to be at home when they're coming and going. She said it's much harder than it was going to church circle on a Monday night and leaving your kids at that point. But he was, again, very bright kid. And
I used to hang out with Kurt Wallman, with Kurt,